Hello, everybody. My name is Arthur Pope. I'm with the NRA, and today I'll be talking about why strict gun control laws do more harm than good. So you might be wondering, what exactly are gun control laws? Don't we have gun control laws? And yes, they were put in place, the stricter ones in 1990 by Bill Clinton's administration. But the mainstream media took awareness to it during the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. And this, actually, according to Thought.co, increased public awareness of the lack of control over the sale and possession of firearms. Now, gun control dates back all the way back to after it became an amendment after 1791, back to the 1800s, and it actually goes from there on to the 30s with the Congress banning the mailing of firearms and putting in background checks, and that was the Brady laws in the 90s. So here I'm going to go ahead and talk about some the arguments that people come up for why gun control is better and why we need stricter gun control laws in America. So, although background checks, as I mentioned, are part of the process in buying guns, people like this gentleman right here still get through and commit heinous acts with those guns. The left argues that this is a good reason for why we need stricter gun control laws, why we need to take away firearms from people, and the NRA sides with the right in that we don't really need to have strict gun control laws and that we need to arm our citizens more. And here we go to the cons for gun control. Strict gun laws don't do anything but put law-abiding citizens in danger. And many of those mass shootings that I mentioned could have been avoided if those citizens were armed, if those citizens had weapons of their own, guns of their own. This most recent shooting in Texas was a church shooting. The gentleman shot and killed 26 people in a church, but he was able to be stopped by two gentlemen who saw what he was doing, grabbed their rifle, and took care of the problem. And according to Mother Jones, intervention by civilians only occurred in 1.6% of all mass shootings since 1980. If those civilians would have been armed more, they would have been able to have stopped more mass shootings. Gun control is only the start. Now, the left also argues that a lot of things like other countries implemented gun control, like the UK and Australia, but in those countries actually are a higher murder rate. And we can look at history. In 1929, the Soviet Union established gun control, and then shortly after rounded up all of their protesters and executed them. And those were civilians who did not have the means to protect themselves because their guns were taken away from them. And the founding fathers put into place the Second Amendment because they had just gone through a revolution where they had fought a tyrannical king, and they saw fit that if the government were ever to try to become a tyrannical society again, that the citizens should be able to arm themselves and not allow the government to take over the country as it happened with them. So, in conclusion, guns do not kill people. People do. A gun is a tool just like any other weapon. It has a purpose. And we should not have stricter gun laws put into place that would stop law-abiding citizens from using them when only a few people have broken that right. Thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
So, are you saying that not taking away gun control or putting stricter gun control will help stop the mass shootings?
I'm saying that stricter gun control laws would be harmful to the law-abiding citizens of America because implementing such a system, first it's stricter gun control laws, then the government comes in and they start taking your home, they start taking your family, and there's no way to defend yourself, like we saw throughout history. The Soviet Union and in China, and there's actually more murders in Australia because they don't have guns. They did the stricter gun control laws, and it's like highest for murder rates.
Do you think there would be a way to where we could loosen up the strictness and still have a safe rate for gun control?
Yeah, so there are already strict gun control laws put into place during Bill Clinton's administration. Like I said, I mentioned the Brady acts, and those implemented the background checks and the extreme vetting. And recently, a journalist tried to prove how easy it is to buy guns, and he went out and he tried to buy a gun, but he was stopped because of the background checks. They found that he had some civil abuse issues in the past, and he was not allowed to buy a gun. So that right there shows how well the system is already put into place. There's just these few people who seem to, they're in their mental people, they have mental illness problems, and they use that right to own a weapon to solve some sort of problem that they think they have.
What do you think those medical issues don't show up on their record?
So some of those medical issues occur after they bought a gun. Like they buy the gun and they're fine, but then something happens, like they get divorced, or they go to war and they come back and they suffer from this PTSD and they don't know what's going on. Like recently, last year, there was a gentleman who went around Chicago and he was shooting a couple people because his wife divorced him, and he was shooting them in her name. And people, and again, the left cried for gun control and they said this is what we needed, but it wasn't the gun's fault. It was that man doing it. Any other questions? Any other comments?
So you agree with background checks, but you don't want any laws that take away our guns.
Right. Yeah. So the background checks, I think they could be used. They could probably take more time on it. Right now, how it works is you go and you buy a gun. They do a background check on you. It's 24 hours. If they find anything, then they go in longer. But then if they don't find anything that's that's too, I guess, extensive or too bad, then they'll you can buy the gun and go on with your life. I agree with background checks. I just think they need to be more vetted. I just don't agree with the government coming in and taking our weapons, taking our guns, because, like I said, it starts with the guns and then it goes. The government rounds you up and they start exterminating all the defenseless civilians.
So is there a way to own a gun still, or?
Yeah, so you can still buy a gun. I think there's a lot of confusion right now in this country with how it works. A lot of people think that you can go out to Walmart and buy an assault rifle, a high-powered assault rifle, when it doesn't really work like that. There's gun shows where you can buy a gun, and there's some loopholes where you can buy a gun and not get a background check, and then there's some where you actually go through a background check. And most of the cases where there's been mass shootings, it's either they haven't gone through background check, or they've gone through background check and it was something other than something that wouldn't show up on their